All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. And with the start of the NBA season right around the corner, let's talk about how things are going to look in the Eastern Conference. Now, I want to start off with the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks come into this season and they're going to be looking to make it two titles in the last 3 years. And Milwaukee knows how close that they were to getting back to the finals last year. And I say that because we saw Milwaukee, do their thing and take care of business in the regular season. But, not having Chris Middleton in that series against the Boston Celtics in the conference semis really made a difference in that series. And of course, I am in that category. Whereas, if Middleton was healthy, obviously, I feel that things would have been a lot different throughout the postseason, not just for the Bucks, but for other teams as well. The Bucks are hopeful to have a healthy Middleton back this season. But honestly, when it's all said and done, what Milwaukee seeks to accomplish starts and ends with Giannis Antetokounmpo. You're talking about one of the better players in the NBA. He has the ability to take over a game at both ends of the floor. You talk about his ability to get to the basket, playing close to the basket. Sometimes Giannis can fall in love with being a perimeter player, but I will continue to say that Giannis is at his best when he is playing 15 feet and within on the offensive end of the floor. But make no mistake about it, as he goes, so do the fortunes of the Bucks. Now, I talked about having a healthy Chris Middleton. You also have Drew Holiday, who is a steadying force as far as being a point guard and ball handler for this team. You bring back Bobby Portis, you have Brooke Lopez, Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton is somebody else to keep an eye on. And then you have grizzled veterans such as George Hill as well as Serge Ibaka. And for head coach Mike Budenholzer, this once again will make the Bucks one of the teams to beat in the Eastern Conference. Now, for the Philadelphia 76ers, is this the year that they finally are able to break through and win the East? We've seen the Sixers consistently be a playoff team in recent years, but they've been unable to get past the conference semis. Now, for head coach Doc Rivers, you know what people are always going to say as far as his inability to get it done in the postseason. But at the end of the day, kind of like how it is for the Bucks, for the Sixers, it starts and ends with the big fella, Joel Embiid. And we've seen Embiid dominate so much in recent years in Philadelphia, made a very compelling case to be the NBA's MVP last year and fell short to Nikola Jokic, excuse me, of the Denver Nuggets. But make no mistake about it, Embiid is still in that rare air as far as being one of the better players in the league. But just like it is for any great player, it's all about the supporting cast around him. We saw the Sixers make that deal with the Nets last year to acquire James Harden, and it's going to come down to what can James Harden do. We've seen enough of James Harden over the years to know that he will have shaky performances in the postseason. Will Harden be able to shake off those demons? We got to wait and see. But you still have Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey. One signing that I think really flew under the radar this offseason, and I think it's really going to take shape for the 76ers in the postseason, is bringing in PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker for this era is one of the better perimeter defenders. He knows how to get up in a player's face, really make life tough for him. And that is really, and I mean really, going to pay dividends for the 76ers come postseason time. You also bring in a grizzled guy on the boards like Montrezl Harrell. That will definitely help. And you still have DeAnthony Melton as well as Shake Milton. So the components are there. Let's just see what the 76ers are able to do. Now, for the Boston Celtics, after being so close to winning the NBA championship last season, they got to try to find a way to do something for an encore. But honestly, I feel like the Celtics have really been done a disservice this year. Of course, obviously, we all know about the year-long suspension of their head coach, Ime Udoka. And, I'm not trying to make light of the situation. I'm also not trying to sit up here and make him a martyr or anything like that, but nonetheless it's just difficult, and it's going to be difficult for the players on this team in spite of what anybody tries to say. Joel Mazzulla, an assistant coach for the Celtics, will be stepping in and be the head coach for this year. But it's going to be interesting to see how the Celtics team responds to him. One of the biggest reasons why the Celtics made the run that they did last year, one of the better defensive teams in the NBA, and we saw that at times last year in the postseason. We saw them how they were able to close out the Nets in the first round, get past the Bucks, get past the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they also put a scare in the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals. Is that defensive intensity going to continue to be there for the Celtics now that Udoka is not around? You still got Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown leading this team. One question for me are the feelings. How were the feelings, rather, of Jalen Brown? I know there were rumors about him possibly getting traded over the summer for a player such as Kevin Durant. So it's going to be interesting to see, if that was true, how how he responds to that. One thing that the Celtics definitely did to improve their situation was bringing in Malcolm Brogdon, the former Pacer and Buck. He gives them you know, an established ball handler, and that is so important because now that takes pressure off of guys like Marcus Smart. It takes pressure off of guys like Jason Tatum. And now Tatum has an opportunity to be more of a scorer as opposed to just trying to bring the ball up as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts the Celtics team going forward. You still have Marcus Smart. He's the heart and soul of this team with his defensive intensity. You have Al Horford. Derek White was a solid acquisition for the Celtics last year prior to the trade deadline from the San Antonio Spurs. And then Robert Williams. Is he going to be able to be healthy? He's another presence for them on the interior. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Celtics roll with the punches this year. The Miami Heat, they were so close, yet they were so far last year, had the best record in the East. Of course, they were a Jimmy Butler made shot away from getting to the finals. But this team, to me, I think they're still going to be one of the top teams in the East. They lost PJ Tucker in free agency to the 76ers, and you still got Jimmy Butler leading this team. Tyler Harrow, when he's on top of his game, he is a phenomenal shooter. You got Bam Bam in the middle. He's never going to be, in my opinion, he's never going to be a 25 and 12 guy, but he's still solid for this Heat team. You got Duncan Robinson. Victor Oladipo, can he finally be healthy? We got to wait and see. And then the veteran point guard like Kyle Lowry running things. So for me, this team for Eric Spoelstra, they just know how to grind out wins. Sometimes it's not pretty, but you know what? The Miami Heat don't like being pretty. It's all about winning. And when it's all said and done, you still have to expect the Heat to be in the mix. Now, the Chicago Bulls have the talent, but there are plenty of question marks. We know what DeMar DeRozan is able to do as a scorer. We've also seen Zach LaVine show that he is more than just a dunker. But the biggest thing is Lonzo Ball, his health. We saw Lonzo miss a lot of time last year with the knee, wasn't available for the Bulls in the postseason, and it showed. And the Bulls have some talent on this team under Billy Donovan. You got Nikola Vujacic, you have Kobe White, Goran Dragic, as well as Alex Caruso. And not to mention, like I've talked about, both DeRozan and Levine, but it comes down to Lonzo Ball. His health, he's the point guard, he's the floor general, he makes things go. So that's going to be the big thing. He's not going to be available at the start of the season, but let's see if the Bulls can get him back and healthy at some point. And that's going to be the difference for this squad. They got the Atlanta Hawks. And, after taking a step back last year, are they ready to make another run in the East? We saw them a couple of years ago get to the conference finals. Trey Young basically put the league on notice that he is one of the most prolific scorers. And now we saw the Hawks acquire Deontay Murray from the San Antonio Spurs. So you have two guys that can light it up, two volume shooters. But my biggest question with both Trey Young and Deontay Murray, are they going to be able to get the ball enough consistently to other players on this team, such as John Collins, Clint Capella, Bogdan Bogdanovic? That's going to be the main thing. We know that Murray and Young can score, but they have to find a way to get other guys involved so that this way that the offense just doesn't go stagnant. Now, the Toronto Raptors, we saw them enjoy a 21 win improvement last year en route to a playoff berth. But can head coach Nick Nurse and his crew be able to build off of that? We've seen Pascal Siakam continue to improve season by season for the Raptors. You have talent on this team. Fred Van Fleet has shown that he's a solid perimeter scorer. You also have Gary Trent Jr., OG Ananube, as well as Scotty Barnes. And the Raptors, I think, will once again be in position to make some noise in the Eastern Conference. Now, last season we saw the Charlotte Hornets reach the play-in tournament, but will they be able to end their 6-year playoff drought? Steve Clifford is back as the head coach of the Hornets as he replaces James Borrego. Of course, there was a lot of confusion for the Hornets over the summer. They thought that they were going to get Kenny Atkinson to leave Golden State and be their next coach, and he declined. And then they went back to Borrego. But make no mistake about it, the Hornets have talent and they can light it up with LaMelo Ball. This is a guy that pretty soon he is going to be in the mix to be an NBA MVP, excuse me. You have Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward and Kelly Oubre as well. No Miles Bridges, and I'm not sure if he's going to play at all this season for anybody in the NBA. And like I talked about the Hornets being able to light it up, but what has hurt this team? Because we've seen them be able to consistently get to the play-in tournament. Their weaknesses are always exposed there, and it's at the defensive end. Charlotte cannot stop anybody. They were 25th in points allowed this season, and until the Hornets are able to improve at the defensive end of the floor, that's going to be the difference in them being able to get to the play-in tournament and get to the playoffs. Now, for the Brooklyn Nets, you hate to say it, but this franchise is a circus. And it's sad because there's so much individual talent there, but it's been unable to come together. You have Kevin Durant, who is one of the better scorers in this era of NBA basketball. Same thing can be said for Kyrie Irving. Last year didn't work out with KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. So you trade James Harden to Philly and you get back Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons has yet to play for the Nets. There are some people that think that Ben Simmons definitely has something to prove this season, but we have to wait and see. But we know all about the drama over the summer with Kevin Durant and Steve Nash, Kyrie and Steve Nash, the Nets head coach. It's going to be difficult, I really think, for this team to put all of that aside for 82 games this year. This is Kyrie's last year of his deal. So what type of season can we see from him? KD, we know what he can do, but can he put this team on his back and help the Nets make a deep run into the postseason? We got to wait and see. You got the reserve, or pardon me, the role players there. You got Steph Curry, Joe Harris, Patty Mills, and you also bring in a guy like Marquise Morris. But the thing is, at the end of the day, it starts from the top, and it's just this Nets team is just combustible. That is the biggest thing that has plagued the Nets in recent years, and I think it's going to continue to plague them going forward. Now, the other team that plays in New York City, the New York Knicks. Will this season end with the Knickerbockers being able to punch a ticket for the postseason? We saw them break through 2 years ago. They took a step back last year, but then also the Eastern Conference around the Knicks improved. You still have Tom Thibodeau as the head coach. We saw the Knicks make a big time push to try to acquire guard Donovan Mitchell from Utah over the summer. Didn't work out as he went to Cleveland. We saw the Knicks overpay for guard Jalen Brunson. And I think, and I talked about it when it happened, I think this is something that the Knicks will eventually regret because they basically offered Jalen Brunson double the amount of money that the Dallas Mavericks were willing to offer him in order to keep him. So I think that's a telling sign right there. And also, my biggest thing, yeah, you got Jalen Brunson to come to the Knicks, but guess what? He's not bringing Luka Doncic with him. And I think that goes for a lot of what we saw Brunson do last year was playing alongside a guy like Doncic. Now, you still have Julius Randle. You got RJ Barrett, who is the future of this franchise. Evan Fournier, you're paying him, so you expect the production to be there. Derrick Rose and those old knees, how much can you expect from him? Mitchell Robinson is a solid shot blocker. And, I'll continue to say it. The Knicks just don't utilize Obi Toppin properly. Another player to keep an eye on for this Knicks squad is Emmanuel Quigley. But for me, I'm not sure if it's going to be able to all come together for the Knicks to make the postseason. Now, last year, the Cleveland Cavaliers were one of the surprise teams in the NBA. The Cavs came out of nowhere to finish with a winning record, got to the play-in tournament, but they were knocked off there. They got to try to find a way to build off of that and get to the postseason this year. What do? If you're Cleveland, you go out there and make the trade for Donovan Mitchell from the Utah Jazz. And now for Cavs head coach JB Bickerstaff, he's got to get Mitchell to be on the same page with the likes of Darius Garland, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Kevin Love, Ricky Rubio, and Karis LeVert. There's plenty of talent for this Cleveland team. I think the biggest thing for me in watching this Cavs team play is that Donovan Mitchell has to know that he does not have to do it all by himself. There is talent around him. And if he can consistently share that basketball, this Cleveland team is definitely going to be formidable in the Eastern Conference. For the Washington Wizards, they got to try to find a way to make some noise. They gave that big extension to Bradley Beal, and he looks to be healthy this year. The biggest thing for the Wizards, we saw them acquire Kristaps Porzingis from the Dallas Mavericks last year, and now let's see how he and Beal can play together in the nation's capital. You got Kyle Kuzma, you got Rui Hachimura, as well as Corey Kispert. So there's young talent there on this team, but it boils down to one Brad Beal. At the end of the day, Bradley Beal is a guy who's going to get his points, but he's not going to make the people around him better. And with that all said and done, I think that the Wizards will continue to have an uphill battle in the Eastern Conference. Now, for the Indiana Pacers, they won only 25 games last year, but will things get any better for them in their second year under head coach Rick Carlisle? Now, no Malcolm Brogdon, DeMontis Sabonis, or Karis LeVert, as these were the top three scorers for Indiana last year. It's going to be a lot of Buddy Hield and Tyrese Halliburton, as well as Miles Turner. But when it's all said and done, all three of those guys that I just mentioned at the end of the day are trade bait come the trade deadline. Now, for the Pistons, can they break through and make some noise in the East? This is year number 5 for Dwayne Casey as their head coach. We saw Jeremy Grant get traded to Portland. So it's the Cade Cunningham show right now. And the thing is, Cunningham takes a lot of shots, but the Pistons, to me, I think are one of those teams. They need to rely on more ball movement and getting other guys involved as well. The likes of Marvin Bagley, Bojan Bogdanovic, Sadiq Bey. There's a possibility that Kemba Walker, the veteran guard who they just signed, is going to be waived. So I'm not sure if the Pistons are really going to be that much of a factor in the East this year. And finally, you got the Orlando Magic. They've been in a funk. We've seen Orlando lose a combined 111 games over the last 2 years alone. Now the Magic took Paolo Banchero early in this summer's NBA draft, and they're hopeful that he can be the building block for this team. You got some young talent in Orlando. You got Cole Anthony, Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr., Jalen Suggs, and Gary Harris. But the problem for this young team under head coach Jamal Mosley, not a lot of veterans. And I say that because nobody on this team was born in the 1980s. So will this young Magic team be able to make some noise in the Eastern Conference? They're going to be fighting an uphill battle themselves. But when it's all said and done, I think the teams that are locks for the postseason, I think Milwaukee's going to they're going to be right back in form, especially if they're healthy. Philly, definitely. Miami is once again going to be a solid squad. Boston is still going to be formidable. It's just going to be interesting to see how good they are defensively and what type of adjustments that Joe Missoula is going to be able to make for this team. Chicago, Chicago at the very least is going to make the play-in tournament, in my opinion. I think it's going to be interesting to see when and if they can get Lonzo Ball healthy. I think Atlanta will show improvement now that they have Deontay Murray alongside of Trey Young. Toronto is going to once again be consistent because Toronto is one of those teams. I've talked about them before with their system, quality system, but not only that, Toronto is a team, they know how to take care of their business against the teams that they're supposed to beat. And because of that, that gives them a puncher's chance to do some damage. You also have Charlotte. I think Charlotte finds a way to get into the play-in tournament. Will they be able to take that next step? We got to wait and see. Fans of the Nets may not want to hear this, but I got the Nets probably get to the play-in tournament because they're another one of those teams. I think they're too combustible that, it's going to hurt them throughout the season. And the biggest thing for me, I'm not sure if Kyrie and KD collectively respect Steve Nash. The Knicks, honestly, Knick fans might not want to hear this, but I think the Knicks at the end of the day are going to be on the outside looking in. Not to say that the Knicks are not a decent team. It's just the fact that once again, just like it was last year, the Eastern Conference has gotten a little bit better and it's going to make it tough for the Knicks to make the postseason. I think the Cavs, at the very least, I think the Cavs can make the play-in tournament. They had the ability to make the play-in tournament without Donovan Mitchell last year, but I just want to see how all of this talent is able to come together for Cleveland. For the Wizards, again, I think Brad Beal is going to be one of those guys that he puts up his points and continues to put up his points, but he's not going to get it done as far as getting the Wizards to the postseason. And for the Pacers, the Pistons, and the Magic, unfortunately for their sakes, there just aren't participation trophies handed out in the NBA. But when it's all said and done, the season's a couple of days away from getting going, and I think we are in store for an exciting brand of basketball. And just be back on here real soon when I talk about the Western Conference outlook. So, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.